Lisa had always been someone who woke up at the smallest sound. A car door slamming 3 houses down could pull her from the deepest sleep. So when that strange humming started at 2:47 in the morning, her eyes snapped open immediately. At first, she thought maybe it was the air conditioning unit acting up again. But this sound was different. It was soft, almost musical, like someone was humming a lullaby in a language she'd never heard before. The sound seemed to be coming from outside her bedroom window. Lisa lived alone in a small house at the end of Pine Street. Her neighbors were all elderly folks, who were definitely not the type to be outside humming at nearly 3 in the morning. Curious and slightly worried, she slipped out of bed and tiptoed to her window. What she saw made her heart stop. Standing in her backyard, right next to her old apple tree, was a figure that couldn't possibly be human. It was tall, maybe 7 feet, with skin that seemed to glow with a soft blue light. The being looked delicate, almost like it was made of moonlight and mist. Its arms were longer than any human's, and its fingers seemed to have an extra joint. But it was the eyes that made Lisa's breath catch in her throat. They were huge, taking up almost half of the being's face, and they were the darkest black she'd ever seen. Not the black of night, but the black of deep space, like looking into the universe itself. And those eyes were staring directly at her. Lisa's first instinct was to duck below the windowsill, but she found herself frozen. The being's gaze held her in place, not in a threatening way, but like a gentle hand on her shoulder. She felt oddly calm, despite the impossibility of what she was seeing. Then something extraordinary happened. Without any sound, without any movement from the being, a name appeared in Lisa's mind as clearly as if someone had whispered it directly into her ear. Zara. The name felt foreign on her mental tongue, but somehow it fit perfectly. It was like finding a word she'd been searching for her whole life without knowing it. The moment Lisa thought the name, the being's entire body jerked as if it had been struck by lightning. Its mouth opened in what was unmistakably a gasp, and its glowing form flickered like a candle in the wind. The creature's long fingers clutched at its chest, and Lisa could see what looked like genuine pain crossing its features. Lisa's heart raced. Had she somehow hurt this being just by thinking its name? She tried to push the thought away, but it was too late. The name echoed in her mind again. Zara. Another gasp. This time, the being actually stumbled backward, its form becoming more translucent. Lisa could see the apple tree right through its body. The creature's dark eyes widened, and it raised one trembling hand toward the window where Lisa stood. "I'm sorry," Lisa whispered, though she had no idea what she was apologizing for. She didn't even know if the being could hear her through the glass, but somehow it seemed to understand. The creature's head tilted slightly, and Lisa felt a wave of something. It wasn't quite emotion, but it was close, sadness mixed with recognition. Fear blended with hope. It was like feeling someone else's heart beating inside her chest. Lisa found herself pressing her palm against the cool glass of the window. The being saw this gesture and slowly, carefully, raised its own hand for a moment. They stood like that, separated by glass and species and the vast emptiness of space, but connected by something Lisa couldn't begin to understand. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the being began to fade. Its form grew dimmer and dimmer until Lisa was staring at nothing but her empty backyard and the old apple tree swaying in the night breeze. But the name remained in her mind, crystal clear and impossible to forget. Zara. Lisa spent the rest of the night sitting by her window, watching the yard and trying to convince herself that she'd dreamed the whole thing. But every time she thought the name, she felt a strange tingling in her chest, like an echo of that creature's pain. As the sun began to rise, painting the sky in soft pinks and oranges, Lisa finally moved away from the window. She made coffee with shaking hands and sat at her kitchen table, staring at the backyard through the sliding glass door. Had she really seen an alien? The rational part of her mind said no. That stress from her new job and too much late-night television had finally caught up with her. But the name kept repeating in her thoughts, each repetition bringing with it that same sense of connection and inexplicable sorrow. Zara. Lisa wondered if she would ever see the being again. Part of her hoped she would. Despite the fear and confusion, there had been something almost beautiful about the encounter. The creature hadn't seemed threatening, just lost, like it was as surprised to see her as she was to see it. But another part of her worried about that gasp of pain, if thinking the name hurt this Zara. What did that mean? How was such a thing even possible? Lisa finished her coffee and got ready for work, but she couldn't shake the feeling that her life had just changed in ways she couldn't begin to understand. The normal world of traffic jams and office meetings and grocery shopping seemed somehow smaller now. Less important, because somewhere out there, in the space between stars or the folds of reality itself, was a being whose name she carried in her mind. And every time she thought it, she could feel an echo of its presence, like a whisper from across the universe. Zara. Lisa wondered if she would ever understand what had happened to her. She wondered if she would ever see those deep, dark eyes again. Most of all, she wondered if there was a way to think the name without causing pain. Because despite everything, despite the impossibility and the fear, Lisa found herself caring about this strange visitor from the stars. And she had the growing feeling that this was only the beginning of something much bigger than she could imagine. 3 days passed after that strange night, and Lisa tried her best to forget what she'd seen. She threw herself into work, stayed late at the office, and even called her sister to catch up on family news, anything to keep her mind busy and away from that impossible name that seemed to echo in her thoughts. But forgetting proved harder than she expected. On Thursday morning, while brushing her teeth, the name slipped into her mind without warning. Zara. The moment she thought it, something flickered in her bathroom mirror. Just for a second, she saw those familiar dark eyes staring back at her instead of her own reflection. Lisa dropped her toothbrush and spun around, but the bathroom was empty. When she looked back at the mirror, only her own startled face stared back. Lisa's hands trembled as she picked up her toothbrush from the floor. She was losing her mind. That had to be it. The stress of moving to a new city, starting a new job, living alone for the first time. It was all catching up with her. But deep down, she knew she wasn't crazy. Something was happening. Something connected to that glowing being in her backyard. The next incident happened at the grocery store. Lisa was reaching for a box of cereal when she absent-mindedly thought the name again. This time, she saw Zara standing at the end of the aisle, her tall form partially hidden behind a display of bread. The being's mouth opened in that same painful gasp, and her glowing form flickered like a broken light bulb. Lisa blinked hard, and when she opened her eyes, the aisle was empty except for an elderly man comparing pasta sauce labels. This is impossible, Lisa whispered to herself, but her voice shook with uncertainty. Over the next 2 weeks, the encounters became more frequent. Every time Lisa thought Zara's name, the alien would appear somewhere nearby. Sometimes it was just a glimpse in a store window as Lisa walked by. Other times, Zara would materialize in the corner of Lisa's vision while she sat in a restaurant or waited for the bus. And each time, without fail, the being would gasp in what looked like genuine pain. Lisa started carrying a small notebook with her everywhere. She began writing down every encounter, noting the time, place, and her emotional state when she thought the name. She felt like a scientist studying some bizarre phenomenon, except the phenomenon seemed to be connected directly to her own mind. What she discovered both fascinated and horrified her. When Lisa thought the name out of simple curiosity, Zara would appear calm but clearly uncomfortable, like someone enduring a mild headache. But when Lisa thought it while feeling anxious or scared, Zara's reaction was much worse. The alien would double over, her form becoming so translucent that Lisa could barely see her. The worst incident happened on a rainy Tuesday evening. Lisa had been having a particularly stressful day at work, and her boss had criticized a project she'd spent weeks on. Walking home through the drizzle, feeling frustrated and sorry for herself, the name popped into her head with unusual force. Zara. This time, the alien appeared right in front of her on the sidewalk. But instead of the usual gasp, Zara let out what could only be described as a scream. Her entire form convulsed violently, and she collapsed to her knees on the wet pavement. The glow around her body pulsed erratically, like a heart struggling to beat. "No, no, no," Lisa whispered, rushing forward. But when she reached the spot where Zara had been, there was nothing there but rain-soaked concrete. That night, Lisa sat at her kitchen table with her notebook spread out in front of her. She stared at pages of careful observations, trying to make sense of what was happening to her. The pattern was clear. Her emotions affected Zara's pain level. But why? How was such a thing even possible? Lisa found herself genuinely worried about this strange being. Zara wasn't just some hallucination or figment of her imagination. She was real, and she was suffering every time Lisa's mind wandered to that beautiful, otherworldly name. She was causing pain to someone who had never done anything to hurt her. The guilt was eating at her alive. Lisa tried meditation, hoping to gain better control over her thoughts. She downloaded apps that promised to help with mindfulness and concentration. She even bought a book about controlling unwanted thoughts. But nothing worked. The name seemed to have a life of its own in her mind, appearing at the most unexpected moments. During a quiet moment at work, while eating lunch alone in the break room, Lisa thought the name again. This time, Zara appeared sitting in the chair across from her. The alien's dark eyes met Lisa's, and for a moment, there was something different in her expression. Instead of just pain, Lisa saw what looked like recognition. Understanding? Zara's mouth opened in the familiar gasp, but this time she also raised one long finger to her lips, as if asking for silence. Then she pointed to her own chest, then to Lisa's, and back again. "You're trying to tell me something," Lisa whispered. Zara nodded slowly, her form flickering with the effort of maintaining her presence. She pointed to her temple, then to Lisa's, making a connecting gesture with her hands. "We're connected somehow," Lisa said, her voice barely audible. "Aren't we?" Another nod. But before Zara could communicate anything else, her form began to fade. The pain of maintaining the connection was clearly too much for her. Lisa watched helplessly as the alien disappeared, leaving her alone with her half-eaten sandwich and a growing sense of responsibility. This wasn't just about her anymore. Somewhere out there, in whatever dimension or reality Zara existed in, there was a being who was suffering because of her dot, and Lisa was determined to find out why. That evening, Lisa made a decision. She couldn't keep avoiding the name or pretending this wasn't happening. If she and Zara were connected, then maybe, just maybe, she could figure out how to help instead of hurt. She opened her notebook to a fresh page and wrote at the top, "How to communicate without causing pain." It was time to stop running from the impossible and start embracing it. Because somewhere in the space between worlds, Zara was waiting, and Lisa was the only one who could help her. The question was, how? Lisa spent the next week preparing for what she hoped would be her first real conversation with Zara. She turned her small home office into a quiet, comfortable space where she could focus without distractions. She dimmed the lights, lit a vanilla candle, and sat in her most comfortable chair with her notebook ready. The plan was simple. Instead of accidentally thinking Zara's name and causing pain, she would try to communicate directly. No names, just thoughts. Taking a deep breath, Lisa closed her eyes and focused her mind. She imagined herself reaching out across whatever invisible bridge connected them. Then, as gently as possible, she projected a single thought. "Can you hear me?" Nothing happened for several minutes. Lisa was starting to think her idea was ridiculous when she felt a strange tingling sensation in her head. It was like having someone else's thoughts brushing against her own. When she opened her eyes, Zara was standing in front of her desk, but this time was different. Instead of the usual gasp of pain, Zara seemed more solid, more present. Her dark eyes held Lisa's gaze with an intensity that made her heart race. "I hear you," came a voice that wasn't quite a voice. It was more like an echo inside Lisa's own thoughts, soft and musical like the humming she'd heard that first night. Lisa's hands trembled as she gripped her pen. "Are you okay?" "I'm so sorry about the pain I've been causing you." Zara's expression softened, and something that might have been a smile crossed her features. You could not have known. The fault is not yours. But what's happening to us? Why does thinking your name hurt you, instead of answering with words? Zara's eyes began to glow brighter. Suddenly, Lisa's mind was flooded with images and sensations that weren't her own. It was like watching a movie, but feeling every emotion and experiencing every moment as if she were living it herself. She saw a world unlike anything she could have imagined. Cities that floated among purple clouds, beings of light moving through structures that defied physics, and technology that seemed to blend seamlessly with nature. She felt Zara's memories of this place, the longing for home, the sense of purpose that had driven her across the galaxy. Then came the images of preparation. Lisa saw Zara and others like her in a vast chamber filled with crystalline equipment. They were being prepared for something called First Contact Protocol. The process involved connecting their minds to a massive computer that would help them understand and communicate with alien species. Lisa felt Zara's excitement and nervousness as she underwent the procedure. She experienced the strange sensation of having her consciousness expanded, stretched across dimensions to prepare for contact with beings whose thoughts worked differently than her own. But then something went wrong. The images became chaotic, filled with flashing lights and alarm sounds. Lisa felt Zara's panic as the connection process malfunctioned. Instead of creating a simple communication bridge, the equipment had somehow created a quantum entanglement between Zara's consciousness and the first human mind she would encounter. That mind had been Lisa's. "We are connected in ways my people never intended," Zara's voice whispered in Lisa's thoughts. "When you think my name, it creates what you might call an echo across dimensions. The sound of it travels through the entanglement and returns to me amplified. Like a shout in a canyon." Lisa felt tears on her cheeks. "That's why it hurts you. Every time I think your name, it's like screaming directly into your mind, yes? And the stronger your emotions when you think it, the more painful the echo becomes." The images continued, showing Lisa how the malfunction had stranded Zara between dimensions. She wasn't fully in Lisa's world, but she couldn't return to her own either. The entanglement kept her tethered to Earth, specifically to Lisa's consciousness. "Your mission," Lisa said, understanding flooding through her. "You were supposed to study us, weren't you?" "My people have watched your species for centuries," Zara confirmed. "We were curious about your emotions, your ability to feel so deeply about things that do not directly affect your survival. It is something we lost long ago in our evolution." Lisa saw more images of Zara's people, beautiful and advanced but somehow cold. They had achieved incredible technological progress, but in doing so, they had gradually lost their capacity for strong emotions. They were curious about humans because we still had something. They had given up, but the accident changed everything. Lisa said, "Yes, I was supposed to observe from a distance, to study your emotional responses without interference. Instead, I became connected to one human so deeply that I experienced your emotions as if they were my own." Lisa felt a wave of guilt. "I've been torturing you without knowing it." "You have also been teaching me," Zara said, her mental voice gentle. "Through our connection, I have felt things I never thought possible. Your curiosity, your fear, your concern for my well-being. These are emotions my people have not experienced for thousands of years." The images shifted again, showing Lisa how Zara's superiors had tried to contact her. They had equipment that could potentially sever the connection, but it would require Zara to return to her dimension completely. She would have to abandon her mission and accept that the experiment had failed. "But you haven't gone back," Lisa observed. "No, because something unexpected has happened. I have begun to value this connection, despite the pain. Through you, I am learning what it means to truly feel." Lisa felt a strange mix of honor and responsibility. "What happens now? I do not know. My people grow impatient. They want me to return or find a way to complete the mission. But I cannot study human emotion from a distance anymore. I am too connected to you." The mental images began to fade, and Lisa could see that maintaining this level of communication was exhausting for Zara. The alien's form was becoming translucent again, There's something else, Zara said, her voice growing weaker. The entanglement is not stable. It grows stronger each day. Soon, thinking my name will not just cause me pain. It could trap me permanently in your dimension, or worse, it could pull you into mine. Lisa's blood ran cold. What do you mean? We are becoming too connected. If we do not find a solution soon, one of us may not survive the bond we share. Before Lisa could ask more questions, Zara's form flickered and disappeared, leaving her alone in her office with the shocking revelation that their connection was not just painful, it was dangerous. Lisa stared at her notebook, her pen frozen. Over the blank page, she had wanted answers, and now she had them. But the truth was more complicated and frightening than she had ever imagined. Somewhere across the galaxy, Zara's people were waiting for her to complete a mission that might now be impossible. And here on Earth, Lisa was connected to an alien, whose very presence in her life was becoming more dangerous with each passing day. The question was no longer just how to communicate without causing pain. Now Lisa had to figure out how to save both their lives before their connection destroyed them both. The days following Lisa's revelation were the most difficult of her life. She could barely sleep, knowing that every accidental thought of Zara's name was not just causing pain, but potentially making their dangerous connection stronger. She tried everything to avoid thinking about the alien, but it was like trying not to think about a pink elephant. The harder she tried, the more the name echoed in her mind. During one particularly restless night, Lisa was lying in bed when she felt that familiar tingling sensation in her head. Without her thinking the name at all, Zara appeared sitting in the chair by her window. The alien looked more solid than ever before, but also more tired. The connection is growing stronger, Zara said, her mental voice filled with worry. I can now appear without you calling my name. This is not good. Lisa sat up in bed, pulling her blanket around her shoulders. What does that mean exactly? It means we are running out of time. Soon, I will not be able to control when I appear in your world, and eventually, the connection may pull you into mine. The thought of being pulled into another dimension terrified Lisa, but she was surprised to find that her main concern was still for Zara's well-being. There has to be something we can do. What about your people? Can't they help? Zara's form flickered, and Lisa could see the pain in her dark eyes. There's one possibility. My ship is medical equipment that might be able to sever our connection completely. But the process is extremely dangerous. Dangerous how? For you. It could damage your mind permanently. Humans are not meant to undergo the kind of neural separation this would require. You might lose your memory, or worse, lose your ability to think clearly. Lisa felt her heart racing. And for you, I could become trapped between dimensions forever. If the procedure fails, I would exist in a state of constant pain, unable to return to my world but unable to fully exist in yours either. They sat in silence for a moment, both understanding the weight of their situation. Finally, Lisa spoke. Where is your ship? You cannot seriously be considering this, Zara said, her mental voice sharp with concern. I can't live like this, knowing that every day our connection gets more dangerous. And I can't stand watching you suffer every time I think your name. Lisa paused. Where is it? Zara hesitated before answering. There is an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. I have been able to materialize some of my ship's equipment there. But Lisa, you must understand, there's only a 30% chance that this procedure will work without harming both of us. That's better odds than doing nothing, Lisa said, surprised by her own determination. 3 days later, Lisa drove to the warehouse district as the sun was setting. She had told no one where she was going. If something went wrong, she didn't want anyone else to get involved in this impossible situation. The warehouse Zara had described was a massive, gray building with broken windows and weeds growing through cracks in the parking lot. Lisa parked her car and walked toward the entrance, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Inside, the warehouse was mostly empty except for some old machinery covered in dust. But in the center of the space, Lisa saw something that made her breath catch. There was a section of the floor that seemed to glow with the same soft blue light she had seen around Zara. Equipment that looked like a mixture of crystal and metal was arranged in a circle, humming with energy. "You came," Zara said, appearing beside the strange equipment. She looked more solid than Lisa had ever seen her, but also more worried. "I said I would." Lisa walked closer to the glowing machinery. "How does this work?" "You will lie in the center of the circle. The equipment will scan your neural patterns and locate the points where our consciousness are connected. Then it will attempt to sever those connections one by one." Lisa nodded, trying to appear braver than she felt. "And you? I will be connected to the equipment as well, as it cuts our bond. I will experience every moment of separation. If something goes wrong, the pain could destroy my mind completely." Lisa looked at Zara's beautiful, ethereal face and felt a sudden pang of sadness over the past weeks. This alien had become more than just a mysterious visitor. She had become someone Lisa genuinely cared about. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Lisa asked. "We have no choice. The connection is becoming unstable. In a few more days, it may be too late for either of us." Lisa nodded and walked to the center of the circle. The equipment hummed louder as she approached, and she could feel energy tingling against her skin. She lay down on the cold concrete floor and looked up at the warehouse ceiling. "Are you ready?" Zara asked, positioning herself near a crystalline device that pulsed with inner light. "As ready as I'll ever be." The procedure began slowly. Lisa felt a strange warmth spreading through her body, and the equipment around her began to glow brighter. At first, it was almost pleasant, like soaking in a warm bath. But then the real work began. Pain exploded through Lisa's head as the equipment started mapping her neural connections. It felt like someone was taking her thoughts apart piece by piece, examining each one before putting it back. She could hear Zara's mental voice crying out, and she knew the alien was experiencing the same agony. "Don't stop," Lisa managed to think through the pain. "We have to finish this." The equipment worked faster, and the pain intensified. Lisa felt like her mind was being unraveled and rewoven. Her thoughts scattered and then forced back together. Through their connection, she could feel Zara's form flickering violently between dimensions. Then something went wrong. Instead of severing their connection, the equipment seemed to be making it stronger. Lisa felt her consciousness stretching, reaching towards Zara's dimension. At the same time, she could sense Zara being pulled more firmly into her world. "The procedure is failing." Zara's voice echoed in Lisa's mind, filled with panic. "We are becoming more connected, not less." Lisa tried to speak, but found she couldn't control her own body. The equipment was overloading, sparks flying from the crystalline devices. The humming sound became a high-pitched whine that made her ears ring. "I have to stop it," Zara said, her mental voice growing weaker. "No," Lisa thought desperately. "We'll find another way." But it was too late. With a sound like breaking glass, the equipment shut down completely. Lisa found herself lying on the cold warehouse floor, her body shaking uncontrollably. When she managed to sit up, she saw Zara collapse near one of the crystal devices, her form flickering like a dying light. "Zara!" Lisa crawled toward her, but her hands passed right through the alien's body. "The procedure has failed," Zara whispered, her voice so faint Lisa could barely hear it. "We are now connected more deeply than ever before. I can feel your thoughts as if they were my own." "And you?" Lisa realized with horror that she could sense Zara's presence in her mind more clearly than ever before. The alien's emotions, her memories, her pain, it was all there, mixing with Lisa's own thoughts until she couldn't tell where she ended and Zara began. "What have we done?" Lisa whispered, staring at her hands as they flickered with the same blue light that surrounded Zara. "We have made our situation far worse," Zara said, her form growing more translucent, "and I fear there may be no way to reverse it." As Lisa sat in the abandoned warehouse, watching Zara fade in and out of existence, she realized that their attempt to solve their problem had only made it more dangerous. Now they were connected in ways that defied all logic, and time was running out faster than ever before. 6 months had passed since the failed procedure at the warehouse, and Lisa's life had become something she never could have imagined. The strength and connection with Zara, had initially terrified her, but as weeks turned into months, she began to understand that fighting it only made things worse. The first few weeks after the warehouse incident had been chaotic. Lisa would find herself thinking into different thought patterns at the same time. Her own human logic mixed with Zara's alien perspective. Sometimes she would reach for objects that didn't exist in her dimension, or respond to sounds that only Zara could hear. But gradually, Lisa learned to work with the connection instead of against it. She discovered that when she relaxed and accepted Zara's presence in her mind, the alien's pain decreased significantly. The breakthrough came on a quiet Sunday morning when Lisa was sitting in her backyard, the same spot where she had first seen Zara. Instead of trying to avoid thinking about the alien, Lisa deliberately focused on the name that had caused so much trouble. But this time, she thought it with genuine care and affection. Zara. When the alien appeared, there was no gasp of pain. Instead, Zara's form was more solid and radiant than Lisa had ever seen it. The being's dark eyes held what could only be described as peace. "How do you feel?" Lisa asked, both aloud and in her mind. "Different," Zara replied, her mental voice stronger and clearer. "The pain is gone. But more than that, I feel complete." Lisa smiled, and she was surprised to feel Zara's happiness mixing with her own. "I think I understand now. The connection isn't supposed to be severed. It's supposed to be accepted." Through their mental bond, Lisa felt Zara's agreement. The alien sat down beside her on the grass, and for the first time, Lisa could actually feel her presence as if she were physically there. "My people have been trying to contact me," Zara said. "They want me to return home immediately. They believe the mission has failed completely." "Has it?" Lisa asked. Zara was quiet for a long moment. "I was sent to study human emotion from a distance, but through our connection, I have experienced something far more valuable. I have learned what it means to truly care about another being." Lisa felt a warm glow in her chest that she knew came from both of them. "And I've learned that connection doesn't always mean pain. Sometimes it means understanding." Over the following weeks, Lisa discovered that their bond had evolved into something beautiful. When she thought Zara's name with love and acceptance, the alien would appear not as a painful reminder of their accident, but as a friend who brought comfort and wisdom. Zara began sharing more about her world and her people. Lisa learned that Zara's species had once been very similar to humans, full of emotion and passion. But as they advanced technologically, they had gradually suppressed their feelings, believing them to be inefficient and primitive. "We became powerful," Zara explained during one of their evening conversations. "We could travel between stars, manipulate matter at the molecular level, and live for thousands of years. But we lost something essential in the process, your humanity," Lisa said. Then smiled at the irony. "Well, your version of it, anyway. Yes, we became observers of life rather than participants in it. That is why we were so fascinated by your species. You still possessed what we had given up." Lisa understood now why their connection had been so significant. "You weren't just studying human emotion. You were trying to remember what it felt like to truly feel. And through you, I have remembered. I have experienced curiosity, fear, compassion, and something my people have no word for, but you call love." The word hung in the air between them, and Lisa realized that what she felt for Zara had indeed grown into a form of love. Not romantic love, but something deeper, the love of one conscious being for another, transcending species and dimensions. "What will you tell your people?" Lisa asked. "The truth, that the mission succeeded, but not in the way they expected. I have learned that true understanding cannot come from observation alone. It requires participation, connection, and yes, even pain." As autumn turned to winter, Lisa's life settled into a new rhythm. She still went to work, still paid her bills, still lived her ordinary human life. But now she had a companion who existed in the spaces between worlds. Someone who understood her thoughts and feelings in ways no human ever could. Zara appeared regularly now, always when Lisa thought her name with warmth and affection. They would sit together in Lisa's backyard, watching the stars and talking about the mysteries of the universe. Sometimes they would share memories. Lisa showing Zara the beauty of human experiences, while Zara shared the wonders of her advanced civilization. "I have made my decision," Zara announced one evening as they sat watching the sunset. "I will not return to my world." Lisa felt a mixture of joy and concern. "What will happen to you?" "I do not know. I may exist forever in this state between dimensions, connected to you but never fully part of your world. But I have realized that this connection, this friendship we have built, is more valuable than anything I could find back home." Lisa reached out instinctively to touch Zara's hand, and for a moment, she swore she could actually feel the alien's fingers against her own. "Won't you be lonely?" "How can I be lonely when I am connected to someone who cares for me as you do?" Zara's mental voice was filled with warmth. "Through you, I experience not just my own existence, but yours as well. I feel your joys, your sorrows, your daily discoveries. It is like living two lives instead of one." Lisa understood. Through their connection, she had also gained something precious, a perspective that extended beyond her own human limitations. She could see the world through Zara's eyes, appreciate the beauty of existence from a cosmic viewpoint. "Besides," Zara continued, "I have become something my people need to understand. I am living proof that connection and emotion make us stronger, not weaker. Perhaps someday they will learn from what we have shared." As the months passed, Lisa noticed that thinking Zara's name had become as natural as breathing. The alien was always there, a gentle presence in her mind and heart. When Lisa felt scared or lonely, she would think the name and feel comforted. When she experienced joy or wonder, she would share it with Zara, doubling the happiness. One evening, exactly 1 year after their first meeting, Lisa sat in her backyard and deliberately thought the name that had once caused so much pain. Zara. The alien appeared beside her, glowing softly in the twilight, but now there was no pain, no gasping, no struggle. There was only peace, understanding, and a connection that had transformed both of their lives. "Thank you," Lisa said, both aloud and in her mind. "For what?" Zara asked. "For showing me that the most beautiful connections are the ones we never expected to make." Zara smiled, and Lisa felt that smile in her own heart. Together, they watched the stars appear in the darkening sky, two beings from different worlds who had found something precious in the space between them. Their connection had begun as an accident, caused pain, and nearly destroyed them both. But in the end, it had taught them both the most important lesson in the universe, that true understanding comes not from distance, but from the courage to connect, to care, and to accept the beauty of bonds that transcend all boundaries.